So one note I want to add here, one remark. I hope it is getting recorded. Yes. Okay. So the remark is leverage point need not be an outlier. Okay. So it can be an advantageous point depending upon the situation. This is one example. Okay. So let's say the points are clustered around say this line. Okay. Some line which passes like this. Somewhere here, okay, around that same line, you might find another point which is whose x coordinate is outside the range of the actual distribution of points. So you see that uh, I mean this might look like an outlier. This might be an outlier also, uh, and it might also it might not also be an outlier. Okay, so it can be an outlier. It need not be an outlier. Anything can happen. But if it is not an outlier, so what it will do is it will increase the confidence intervals. Okay. So this is one point that I wanted to make clear. Okay. So there can be some more points here also. What it adds is adds more confidence to our decisions. So not an outlier uh, increases confidence intervals. Is the background still audible effectively?
No, it's clean.
Okay. So this is one point. Okay. So leverage point need not be an outlier always. Okay. Only thing that is very important about the leverage point is that it sort of affects or it has the potential to affect the regression coefficients. In this case, the leverage point doesn't have, does not affect the regression coefficients. That is, it doesn't affect the parameters of the straight line that you are trying to fit. So that is why I put this potential within quotes. I hope that is clear by this example. Clear? So it has a potential, but whether it actually affects the regression coefficients or not depends on the particular situation at hand. Okay.
Yes.
Because the point is, it may be an outlier, it might not be an outlier, it might be a really advantageous point to us. Completely depends on the use case. So after looking into leverage points, we looked at this example, wherein what this example told was that you cannot find out an outlier in higher dimensions, not necessarily, by just analyzing the one-dimensional equivalents or just one-dimensional projections of the data. Okay, and then we discussed about this breakdown point. This is a finite sample version. We'll see the more continuous or asymptotic version later. So this is a regression estimator, and in that case, how is this defined? I'll just go through the main points that you have to keep in mind. I'll not go through the definition again. So one is you are replacing the corrupted version of data. The corrupted version is obtained by replacing any m data points. Nothing like only these particular data points has to be replaced, and they can be done arbitrarily, following no particular restrictions on the distribution of the replaced data. Okay, and that is quite meaningful because since we want robustness to be taken into account, we don't want to sort of assume anything on the corrupted data points or the corruption or amount of contamination. Okay, this has to be clear because most of us think that robust statistics means non-parametric statistics, which is not the case. Okay, so the parameters are there on the model. That constraints of parameters will be there on the model, but not on the contamination. Okay, so that has to be clearly understood. And we say that some breakdown point occurs when this difference, some sort of a norm of this estimated values with contamination and without contamination goes to infinity. Okay, and okay, we started with least squares, okay, where the cost function or whatever you want to say, the minimization objective is something which is minimum of Ra square, right? Minimum of sum of Ra squares. Okay, and then we went to L1 regression because you see that Ri sort of gives more weight to larger residuals, right? So one way of cutting off that larger weighting of weighting of larger residuals in cost function would be to just take the absolute value, that is which is given by this L1 regression. Okay, one thing which we have to be clear is if in the one-dimensional case, okay, if you want to talk about it, it will be sort of median, which I will come in deal in today's class. And if you want to talk about L1 regression in multiple dimensions, then it will have multiple solutions. Okay? One can see why it is not unique. Okay, so in these two cases, that is one is L1 regression and one-dimensional case, it is median, which is a unique solution, and also in the least squares case. Okay? We'll come to why this uniqueness is of importance to us. It is related to something known as convexity, which will also be sometime later. So we saw that the breakdown point for these least squares estimator is okay. I think this must be. I made a small mistake here. Okay. Least squares BD is 0%, and whatever I wrote here is for L1 regression, which was not written earlier. I hope so far it is fine, no doubts.
Yes, yes.
Okay, only advantage of L1 regression is that it will make you see the outliers in y direction but not in the x direction. Okay, and breakdown point wise, at least in one dimensional case, it is 50% breakdown sort of estimator. Okay, and then we started looking into some sort of generalized versions of this estimator. Okay, can something be done in a much better way? Um, so that was what we were trying to deal with. So this is a more general version of our either you want to take the L1 regression or the L2 regression. This is a more general case where instead of just taking Ri or Ri square in the cost function, you are taking a function of Ri, which is the residual, and you can have a lot of constraints on this. Some basic constraints are that this function has to be symmetric function with minimum at Ra is equal to 0, so on and so forth. That is, if Ra is 0, which means that the residual is 0, obviously you want the function also to be 0, because this is sort of taking the weight of that residual. So if there is 0 residual, probably you obviously want to weight it by 0. Okay. So yeah, one small thing that I wrote wrongly here is this equation. Okay, so let me correct it. Um, a small mistake. So you have to minimize this quantity, that is summation of rho of Ri. Okay. So minimization of some quantity means you have to take uh, partial derivatives and equate it to 0, and that will give you a solution of the extrema. Okay, not necessarily minima, but extrema to be precise. So okay, this is the equation. sorry, let me make it. So this ij was something that I wrote wrongly. Uh, in the last class. I. Okay, I is equal to 1 to how many number of samples? N. Okay, this is the equation that we have to solve. And note that what is Ri? Ri is nothing but yi minus sigma theta j x ij. Okay, so now if I do this, okay, theta j, what do I get? I get by use of chain rule. What do I get? Uh, theta j into dou ri of uh, just a minute. I have to write it. Yeah. So this is just by using your chain rule. Okay. So this function is known as the psi function, which will impact this. The form of this function will impact a lot of parameters like breakdown point and other things that we'll talk briefly. And this is nothing but, if you evaluate, it is nothing but, what is it? Minus xij, if I'm right. Right? Yeah. So roughly what you get is psi, let me call this as, yeah, this is fine. So what do I get? The set of equations that I have to solve is psi of Ri, okay, into x ij negative is equal to 0, which again, if negative is 0, positive is also 0. So you will get this equation for every value of j. Okay. So this is starting from j is equal to 1 till this is like j is equal to p. So what is p? P is this number of dimensions. Okay. You can have one theta 0 here also, but roughly the form of equations remains same. That is what is important. Okay. So you will get p equations, and you have to solve p equations, and you have a lot of ways in which you can solve some p equations. Okay. You have to be careful because the relation between n and p, relation between n and p impacts uniqueness. Uniqueness of solutions, along with psi, the very nature of psi and n and p. Okay, both of them sort of dictate what is the type of solutions to get. I hope it is clear. This subtle part is clear.
So you are saying that you have p equations corresponding to the number of dimensions, right? P
Correct.
is
Correct.
the
Yes.
dimensions of space.
Yes.
Yes. Right. Okay. Because how many unknowns you have and how many equations
Correct.
you get is dependent on n and p.
Correct. Correct. And I mean, whether you will get uh, based on our linear algebra, will you get unique solutions or multiple solutions? So all those things will depend on the relative values of n and p,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
as usual from our linear algebra basics.
Right. And the nature of psi that you said,
Huh.
that is why you mentioned in the beginning that for least squares versus, for example, the L1 case,
Hmm.
in higher dimensions, L1 does not have unique solution. That is attributed to the nature of psi rather than n and p, is it not?
Uh, Not only psi. there one more thing comes, that is the convexity of the cost function. See here, if you see carefully, in the least squares case, we are taking sum of error squares. So that quadratic curve, right? It's a convex function.
Right.
Similarly, here in one dimension, yes, whatever you said was true, but what I wanted to emphasize was the convexity of this cost function, which is in turn dictated by this rho and psi. Is that
Okay.
clear? See here, you have Ri square, which is a convex function of the residual. Here you have mod of R, which is also a convex function. Okay.
Right.
And till now, I didn't say anything about rho, whether it is convex or not. Right? I just mentioned that it is symmetric and it must have a minimum at R is equal to 0. I didn't tell about convexity of rho. So here, the main reason why we are getting unique solutions is the convexity. Okay, what is the implication of convexity? If you have complex cost function in a complex domain, then it has a unique minimum. Okay, because you see, I hope that must be clear to Kaushal. See, if you see this, either this function, which is mod of R, or let's say this function, which is this. So it has a unique minimum here, right? It is not something like a hilly region where it has multiple minima, right? Yeah, so this nature of having unique minimum is one outcome of convexity. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, we'll deal about those things as we go ahead. No need to worry about it at this point. Okay. But I wanted to show something, give detailed explanations in each. So now let's just concentrate on this model. One is known as location model. Okay. For today's class. So what is the thing that we have is we have a DC signal, which is let us say mu. Okay. DC signal is mu volts, and what you are observing is a noisy version of that. So by I that you are observing is nothing but mu plus Vi rho I. Okay. Mu. So this is your AWGN noise. Okay, so what is F? It is 1 by root 2 pi sigma square and e power minus x. No, what is that? Mu I. Okay, so basically this is our model of the underlying phenomena that we are trying to estimate a DC signal and what else? The only perturbation is because of AWGN or Gaussian. Okay, so put what? Mu I minus mu. Okay, so here it is 0. Okay, so this is 0 variance noise. Sorry, 0 mean noise. Okay, so what will I get? By 2 sigma square.
Oh, you will have to put sigma in sigma root 2 pi. Sigma square should be in the constant.
Okay. Correct. You're right. Fine. So yes, sigma square here.
Right.
Okay. So this is the PDF. Okay, this is the probabilistic model that we are trying to put over the observed phenomena. Okay. Now we will quickly. The whole point in doing this is we will see that as some as a result of some probabilistic assumption on the model, we'll get mean and median in different situations. Okay. I will just go for the median. I will not go into this variance problem. Okay. So here, what are the parameters of the model? This is just to get Kaushal on the same page. Okay. So here the parameters of our model are the mean, that is mu, and sigma square, sigma, right? This is something that we don't know. Okay. Or we are rather assuming that we don't know it, and we are trying to sort of do some sort of optimization. Okay, so one sort of optimization is based on maximum likelihood. Maximum likelihood. So what is maximum likelihood the estimator do? Okay, in plain English, it will assume that parameters are fixed. Parameters are fixed but unknown. Okay, that is, we don't know what is mu and sigma. Okay, but we have to somehow find out what it is, and we have some assumption. The assumption is that it is the noise is Gaussian. Okay, so this is I'm covering this because we'll have to again sort of play back and forth with this maximum likelihood map and Bayesian things. Each of them have their own implications. Okay. So we assume that the parameters are fixed, and what do we do? Based on observations, okay, that is yi, we choose those parameters which maximize the likelihood. So what is likelihood? Likelihood is this probability of observed data given parameters. Actually, what we have to do naturally is the ulta. That is, we have to see, we know the data and we are trying to estimate the, try to find out the parameters based on some sort of a Bayesian approach. So this is not a Bayesian approach. Okay. So let us not go into Bayesian, but let's just concentrate on this. So what is this in mathematical terms? This is why, let's say we are seeing n values. Okay. So this is a joint probability of yn, okay, y1 to yn. Given these parameters, what are the parameters? Mu and sigma. Is it fine so far? This is known as likelihood.
Yes, yes.
Okay. This distinction must be clear that we have fixed the parameters, but the values of the parameters are not known, and they are just one point. There is just one value of that parameter that is giving rise to the observation, and we are trying to maximize. So optimization problem is what? Optimization problem is find out mu and sigma which maximize likelihood, which maximize basically this quantity likelihood. I hope this is clear, crystal clear. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So now we will make an assumption which is more or less realistic. That is, yi and yj are independent. Okay. So what is the upshot of this? If you have independence, then you can split this as a product of individual probabilities. Okay. So that is the advantage of this assumption. So this will split up as this product y I is equal to 1 to n probability of yi given mu comma sigma. Okay, this is because of independence. Okay, so now let us start putting in values. So what was our equation? Yi is equal to mu plus mu I. So what is probability of Yi? So Yi is Gaussian distributed. What is the mean? Mu, correct? Because this is zero mean, correct? So the mean of Yi is mu. It's just a shift. And what is the variance? Variance is same as the variance of the Gaussian noise. So how can I write whatever this probability of Yi given comma so on and so forth? Because Yi is Gaussian, I can write this safely as 1 by root 2 pi sigma e power minus yi minus the mean of it. Mean of it is mu and then 2 sigma square. Does it?
वो दोनों जगह स्क्वायर एक डालना पड़ेगा, सिग्मा स्क्वायर और वाई नीचे भी.
Yeah, correct. Is it fine?
Yes.
Okay, so now let us just copy this equation. This is just a recap for Saket, but maybe a fresh one for Kaushal. Okay, fine. The part of this whole derivation is that to show that the reason why we got median is there is also probabilistic assumption, okay, of Laplacian instead of Gaussian. So here we put just Gaussian, which is not a very heavy tail distribution, but Laplace is one of the candidates which people use for heavy tail distributions. Just to put the math into context. Okay, so let's now optimize this. So maximizing probability of all these joint variables, okay, by n given mu and sigma is same as what? Argmax. Okay, this is not just argmax, but this is argmax. So argmax is equal to argmax of log of whatever p of y1 blah 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 blah. Okay, because log is monotonic function. Is this part clear?
Yes.
Kaushal, is it clear? This notation argmax.
Yes.
Yeah, so max is nothing but if you want to take, let's say you have an array 1, 4, 3, 2. Max is 4. Okay. Argmax is 2. Okay. Of the same guy, because this is the second what you say element. Okay. So there is a difference between argmax and max. So here what you are really trying to find out is the argument which gives this max. Here it is mu and sigma values. Okay. So even if you apply a log, you will get the same value of mu and sigma once you try to optimize this. So now plugging in all the values, I'll just straight away write the equation. I just wanted to show the modus operandi. Okay, so what we get is, if we try to solve this, what do I get? I get minus summation. I get 2 sigma square. I'll get some constant here, okay, because of this 1 by 2 pi sigma square. And then I have to get this yi minus mu square. Okay, fair enough?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is argmax of this. All these are equivalent. So argmax of this is nothing but this is equivalent to finding argmin of what? This guy. I'm just removing the minus sign. Okay. So now, what is the optimization problem? We have to choose mu and sigma such that this whole quantity is minimized. Okay. So how do we do that? Let us call this as L maximum likelihood. Okay. Of this is a function of all the y's and mu and sigma. Okay. So we have to take partial derivatives of this guy with respect to mu. Okay, I'll just write concisely and equal it to 0 and solve for this equation. Also, you have to do this sigma and equal it to 0. So far, so good.
Yes.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so now let us just do half the job just to get a feel of how what is the new value. Okay, so if I take the partial derivative with respect to mu, what do I get? I get yi minus mu divided by sigma square. Okay, into 2, maybe minus 2. Okay, is equal to 1 to n. Okay, is equal to 0 because it is yi minus mu the whole square. I'm differentiating with respect to mu. Is that fine?
Yes.
Okay, so what does this mean? This means that your mu is nothing but summation of yi divided by n. I is equal to 1 to n. Correct? Yes, because now if you take the summation, you have n times mu occurring within the summation. So I'll just route in one step, return in one step. Okay.
Right.
So this is clear, right, so far?
Yes.
So the very natural notion of this mean is coming out because of one is the Gaussian assumption on the noise. Okay. Now let's just switch gears and see what will happen if you take Laplace, which is a natural candidate to heavy tail distributions. One candidate to model comparatively, okay, not absolutely, model heavy tailed distributions. Laplace is one distributions. Laplace is one choice. Another choice is Cauchy, but Cauchy has some mathematical problem. I mean, you cannot easily get a closed form solution for the Cauchy assumption. Okay, it will again turn out to be a numerical problem. So again, I just tried the probability density function. Okay, we are again assuming the independence assumption. So for Laplace, the equation is this. Okay, so instead of square, you have a magnitude term here. Okay, so what will happen to the result of optimization? Okay, we are doing the same step, so I will not get into each and every step. So this is for every observation. So what will happen to the final thing? Your ML estimate will be what? It is like arg min of or arg max of if I take log, I am assuming I'm taking log, okay? So mentally I have taken log. So what do I get? I get a constant here because of this term, okay? After logarithm, okay? Similarly, because of this term, what do I get? I get minus 2 root yi minus mu, okay? Is it clear so far?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, there's a summation, okay?
Yeah.
Is
And
equal
the
to 1
sigma
to
is also
yeah, correct, fine. Right. Okay. So now this is altogether a different sort of function that we are trying to optimize. So again, going back to our modus operandi, what we have to do is I just zoom in only for this new parameter only, just to show that the median is a result of some optimization. So this will be what can we tell? It will be so if you think of this um, guy x, okay. So d is a bit. You have to be careful here. This is more or less signum function of x. Okay. So signum function is this function where here you have 0, okay, or you have something like an undefined function. So obviously this will be a sort of problem in general case also, okay, where you will not be able to differentiate properly. Okay, so then you have to do some sort of approximations here and there, or some sort of hand waving business to some extent. Okay. So now what will happen to this guy? I will drop out sigma, okay, and straight away quickly write it as -2 into plus signum of, again there will be a summation here, is equal to 1 to n signum of yi minus mu. Is this clear? Is equal to 0.
Will still that mod will be there after putting signum, or it will just be in
Okay, okay,
bracket
okay.
by?
Yeah, you are right. You are right. Because that is already taken care of by signum. So you are right. This will not be there. Yes. Okay. So we have to solve this equation, which in turn will, if I just clean that equation up, signum of yi minus mu is equal to 1 to n, okay, is equal to 0. Now, what do you think is the solution for this?
Median.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kaushal, did you get it? How it is median?
No.
Okay. So let me come out with this signum function. Basically, the signum function takes value 1 when this argument is greater than 0. So this is x is greater than 0. And it takes the value -1 when x is less than 0. And it takes the value 0 when it is exactly 0. Okay. So let me write here for convenience. It is 1 when x is greater than 0, -1 when x is lesser than 0, 0 when x is equal to 0. That's it. Okay. This
Yeah.
definition is clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you see that in this summation, you have to get equal number of plus signs and equal number of minus signs to get this whole thing equated to 0. Correct?
Hmm.
That is, uh, this difference is okay. yi minus mu, let's say y1 minus mu, y2 minus mu, so on up till, let's say there is some guy y, so n by 2, okay, let us assume that it is even. You also know what it should be when it is not equal, even. So n by 2 plus 1 minus mu, so on up till n y n minus mu, okay. So if you see the signum of signum function of these guys, right? So you must have equal number of ones and sorry, equal number of plus ones and minus ones, isn't it?
Hmm.
Correct? So that you get 0.
Yes.
So now what will be the natural solution that you might think of for mu? So obviously mu will be median, because the way we define median is it is like the middle quantity, when you try to order it according to the what ascending or descending order, right? So let's say
Hmm.
y1 was like this, y2 was like this, so on and so forth, something like this. So this will be your median, or even if you take the positive case also, this will be your median, right? So for these values, see, if you take this guy as mu, this guy as mu, and this y1, y2, y3, once you arrange it in ascending or descending order, okay. So you see that for these two values, if you take signum of yi minus mu, you will get -1, and for these two values, you will get +1. And if it is odd, you will obviously get 0 here. Khatam. Right? Similarly, if you have even, you have to be again careful. You have to define the median appropriately. Right? So this is how we get median. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So okay, all this mumbo jumbo business was just to justify that this median is not just coming out of the blue, but it has some sort of probabilistic background. The probabilistic background is that if we assume that in location estimation model, the additive noise is independent and Laplacian, then median is the sort of estimator, natural estimator, natural ML estimator, maximum likelihood estimator. And the reason why we are taking Laplacian is because of heavy tailedness of Laplacian distribution. Are these 2 points clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. So today we'll end with this. So tomorrow we'll continue with just justifying this equivarianceness and what else? But that is one important thing. Equivarianceness we have to get clarified, and then we can go into all the influential what is it, IF curve and other things. Okay. So stop recording.